What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Demon Foundations. My name is Stefan. Today, we're going to be talking about making predictions. So, basically, the bread and butter of the LSAT Demon approach. Demon Foundations, to my understanding, it's kind of a class that runs on a cycle. So, each new week, every Sunday, we're going to be going through a different foundational concept that is, integral to the Demon approach and how we go through questions and how we solve questions. And today we're going to be talking about making predictions. This is something that was truly revolutionary for, my LSAT practice, something that I think is a skill that is developed. I think when I was a student myself with the Demon, and sometimes when teachers would walk through a question and they'd be making predictions and they're like halfway through the passage, I'm like, man, how are these guys just intuitively just so good? They're just making predictions right out the gate. That is not necessarily the case. This is a skills-based test, and I'm sure that you guys have heard that plenty of times. And making predictions is a skill, but there's a caveat to that. That means that we got to work at refining and getting good at this skill. So today, that's exactly what we're going to do. So for a couple of minutes or so, I'm just going to talk a little bit about broadly what making predictions is, kind of, my own 2 cents on making predictions. And then we'll go through and do some LR questions. Maybe I'll go through the first one just so you guys can see sort of my approach, and then we can get some volunteers and just have ourselves an awesome time. Okay, so why do predictions matter? Predictions are like your guardrails, right? They protect you from giving too much attention and too much respect to wrong answer choices. So if you make a good, solid prediction that is rooted in critical thinking and that comes from a deep, comprehensive understanding of the words that you just read, you're going to have blinders on to basically any bullshit that the wrong answer choices are throwing at you, because you're going to go into the answer choices not thinking, ooh, like, I wonder what the right answer choice is. You're going to go in saying, hey, I know what the right answer choice is. And I'm going into the answer choices and I'm finding that. If I'm not seeing it, if it's 2 words in, 5 words in, I'm out of there because I know what my prediction was and that's what I'm looking for. So that kind of leads into the idea that predictions truly help you build confidence and accuracy when doing any sort of LSAT question. I mean, I'm sure many of you guys, I'm actually sure all of you guys have experienced what it's like to just absolutely fully understand either an RC passage or an LR question, maybe even predict the question that it's about to ask you, and then go on to predict the answer, and then to find that answer in the answer choices. How good does that feel? Right? It's like you're just sitting there, you're on the top of the world. It feels awesome. And that's kind of like our whole motto, right? Like the LSAT is easy, and predictions is what makes the LSAT easy, right? Or at least helps make the LSAT easy. Predictions, I'm sure all you guys are super familiar with accuracy over speed. Solve one question at a time. We're not going for speed. But predictions, and I don't want to say this with the sense of like this is a speed tactic or help you get faster. This is kind of just like for the sake of making predictions themselves. Making predictions does, as a result, help you move faster because, again, it just helps you utterly disrespect the wrong answer choices. And that's ultimately where speed comes from in LSAT. It doesn't come from speeding through the passage. It doesn't come from speeding through the question. It comes from disrespecting wrong answer choices. And that comes from making a super solid prediction. So, like, what does the prediction process look like? How do we go about making a good prediction? And that comes from our critical reading of the passage itself. And we don't have to wait till the end of the passage or even till we get to the question to make a prediction. We should always be making predictions in a sense. You read the first sentence, the author says something really funky, and you're like, I feel like I know where you're about to go with this. And if you do end up going there, I'm going to call bullshit on you. That's making a prediction. And making a prediction in that way is what helps us stay engaged and what helps us stay active and intentionally read in the passage. So that's what we're doing when we're making predictions. It doesn't just have to be after a question, you should always be making predictions, little ones, baby ones. And then we make the big one. And that's when we crush the answer choice, right? So, I feel like a lot of students, they, or maybe turned off by making predictions at first, in the sense that some question types, even though we don't like to talk about question types too much, but some question types are more conducive to making like spot on accurate predictions, like sufficient assumption questions, right? We should always be making really specific predictions on a sufficient assumption question. You know, like, what fact am I going to input into this argument in order to prove the conclusion true? Other times, like a supported question per se, or maybe like a necessary assumption question, when there's potentially differing, assumptions that can come up, it might be more difficult to make a specific exact prediction, but we should still be predicting nonetheless. Because what predicting does is, again, it's just making our understanding of the passage more thorough. You're engaging with the passage. You're actively thinking and you're intentionally thinking about the argument and why it's either valid. Most of the times it's not, as we know. Um, and there's also power and value in even making what we call like loose predictions. For example, if you got sort of like a parallel reasoning question, and I don't know, maybe it's very like facty, like if this then that, stuff like that, you might not necessarily have to go in and make like a very specific line for line prediction, but if you understand the argument and the flaw that the argument committed, and most importantly, the reasoning, you're like, hey, the author confused sufficient for necessary here, or hey, the author made a correlation and causation flaw, then that's the sort of prediction we should still be making. We should be thinking about what that sort of argument would look like in the answer choices. So there's always power to making predictions. Predictions help us, and we should always attempt to make a prediction. Cool. How are we feeling? Any questions so far? Nope. We're all good. Cool. Well, I'm gonna stop yapping and we can get to the fun stuff, which is doing real LSAT questions. So let's do that. We're to start with, on the syllabus, test 124, section 2, question 2, Samantha. And then why don't I share my screen so you guys aren't just looking at me the whole time? Unless you guys want to. Don't. I won't. Just kidding. Sweet. Can everybody see my screen? Can everybody see Samantha? Thumbs up. Yeah? Cool. All right, so I'll walk through this one, kind of like a live version of what it looked like of me going through it, and then we can use some volunteers for the rest of it. All right, so this question says, although Samantha likes both oolong and green tea, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, because I've never heard of oolong tea. Have heard of green tea. I like it. None of her friends like both. Okay, so Samantha, she's a tea fanatic. She loves the oolong. She loves the green tea. None of her friends like both. What does that mean? Like, very intuitively, her friends can either like oolong, they can either like green tea, they can't like both. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to like either of them, right? Like, it's entirely a possibility that all of Samantha's friends just hate tea. Samantha can like both oolong and green tea. Doesn't mean her friends have to. So we have a couple different possibilities here. So I'm just thinking through those. However, all of her friends like black tea. All right, never mind. Samantha's friends do like tea, and they like black tea specifically. So 2 sentences, pretty straightforward. I'm not going to rush into the question here. I'm going to think about sort of any connections that I can make between these two facts. So once again, Samantha likes both oolong and green tea. her friends cannot like both, right? But all of her friends like black tea. So what could that mean? Now, again, it might seem ambiguous, but we can actually think of a couple different possibilities for Sam's friends, right? Maybe it could be true that one of Samantha's friends likes black tea and oolong tea. Another one of Samantha's friends likes black tea and green tea. Or maybe one of Samantha's friends just likes black tea and doesn't like either oolong or green tea. Those are all possibilities, right? And yeah, I think that's pretty much as far as I'd go. It's pretty straightforward in that sense. But again, those are some of the connections that we can make just off of those two facts. So let's see what the question asks us. The statements above are true. Each of the following could be true, except. Okay, so there's going to be four answer choices here that all could be true. And we just went through like three different scenarios that all could be true according to these two facts. I'm thinking about one scenario that can't ever be true. And I got one at the forefront of my mind that just kind of is sticking out to me the most is that at least one of Samantha's friends likes black tea, green tea, and oolong tea. That's not possible. Not possible at all. All of her friends like black tea, but none of them can like both oolong and green tea. So basically, none of them can like all three. They can like one of them being black tea. Actually, they must like one of them, which is black tea. They can like up to two teas, black tea and oolong tea, black tea and green tea. So, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. That would be my prediction. If I had to make one specific prediction, something that I had to put my money on, I would say that one of the answer choices says that at least one of Samantha's friends likes black tea, green tea, and oolong tea. All right, cool. Answer choice A, Samantha likes black tea. I don't see why not. We know Samantha likes oolong and green tea. The facts don't give me any evidence to suggest that Samantha could or could not like black tea. I mean, her friends do, so she probably does anyways. She already likes two teas. Why not black tea? B, none of Samantha's friends like green tea. That's entirely possible. Samantha's friends can either like, I don't know, her friend Elizabeth could either like black tea and oolong tea or just black tea. Two possibilities. Samantha's friends like exactly the same kinds of teas as each other. Yeah, sure, why not? Maybe they all hate oolong and green tea, but every single one of them likes black tea. Entirely possible. D, one of Samantha's friends likes neither oolong nor green tea. Yeah, we literally already went through that. It says that although Samantha likes both oolong and green tea, none of her friends like both. So that doesn't mean that they automatically have to like either oolong or green tea. They could say, ew, no, both of those are disgusting. I just like my black tea. Leave me alone, Samantha. Okay, totally fine. E, one of Samantha's friends likes all the kinds of teas that Samantha likes. Exactly. Right? Not possible. Samantha's friends, none of them can like both. All of them like black tea. So they can't they can't all or Samantha's friends can't all like all three kinds of teas. That's going to be our answer. Awesome. Rachel, you got a question? Oh, and Nicholas.
Rachel,
Hey,
you can go ahead first.
thanks, Nicholas. Sorry, I think you had your hand up first, but I was just
I'm
gonna
sorry, I
ask,
saw it first.
I was just gonna ask if you could repeat the prediction. I don't know if it was too fast for me to
Yeah, absolutely.
wrap my head around.
100%. Yeah. And please feel free to like, turn off your or to raise your hand while I'm going through it and hopefully I'll see you and we can pause there too. Just moving forward. Yeah, so my prediction was basically I know that Samantha likes both oolong and green tea, right? That's a fact. What's also a fact is that Samantha's friends, none of them like both oolong and green tea. So what that tells me is that let's say Samantha has a friend called Elizabeth. Elizabeth can like oolong tea only. She can like green tea only, or she can like neither. She can say, ew, gross, no oolong, no green tea. I don't like either. I like coffee. Sorry, Samantha. The next fact tells me all of her friends like black tea. So Elizabeth, never mind, she does like tea. She likes one tea for sure, black tea, right? But since none of Samantha's friends like both oolong and green tea, I know that Elizabeth can't like all three. We already know that she likes black tea, and she can either add on to that green tea only, which would give us two, green tea and black tea, or she could like oolong only and black tea, so oolong and black tea, or she could like again neither oolong nor black nor green tea and only like black tea, which so one just black tea. So those are the three options that I can possibly think of. So and the question asks us each of the following could be true except, so I know that I'm looking for something that must be false because the four answer choices could be true and it's telling me to pick one that each of the following could be true except, so I can't pick an answer choice that could be true. And I know that it can't be true that Samantha's friend Elizabeth likes all three of them. And that's what led me to E. Does that make sense, Rachel?
Yes, thank you for clarifying. I didn't consider the neither in the first sentence.
Yeah,
So
for sure. For
thanks
sure.
very much.
It's like, it's similar to saying, I don't know, you can think of it in the most basic sense. Like, I don't know, Thanksgiving just passed. So it's like, my family, you know, you can't, or like my cousins, none of them like turkey, turkey and ham. Or like no, none of my cousins like both turkey and ham. Right? So they can like one of them, they can like neither of them, but they just can't like them both together. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes, like maybe one's vegetarian or something.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Cool, cool, cool. Nicholas, you got a question?
Yeah, thanks. Just a very quick higher level question about this. So, um,
Okay.
when you're answering, when you're if you were to be doing this on like your a time section or on test day,
Yeah.
and you make that prediction, I'm sort of curious. Do you approach it by, do you actually read A through E sequentially? Go, okay, A, no,
Yep.
B, no, C, no,
Yep.
C, D, no,
Yep.
and then E, that's the right one? Or do you go, here's my prediction. I'm gonna find, like, I'm just gonna skim
Nah.
them and find it. No, okay, so you do
No.
go
No.
sequentially, like, okay, so you
Just
don't go
just read them
searching for it,
like
you just,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Like I yeah, so I feel like when you even if I have as strong of a prediction as I had, if you go into the answer choice trying to like on a hunt looking for your specific answer choice, granted this was like question number 2 of the section, but if you try to do that on any question or especially the questions that come later in this section, they might have similar wording and you just might be going too fast and end up picking a wrong answer choice. Or you could just get confused, spend too much time on one that was maybe starting off the right way and you like gave it an extra minute when you should have only given it like 15 seconds and then you have to go back and actually find the correct answer. So always just start A through E, read them. I'm not going to say read them fully because if you know they're wrong halfway through, carry on, but definitely just go A through E.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
Cool, cool, cool. Does anybody have any questions? Did I do an okay job explaining that there? Yeah, we good? Cool. Thanks, Rachel. I appreciate it. Sweet. Okay. Can you guys still see my screen? Yeah. Do I have a volunteer for the next one? Brendan, let's do it.
Yay, I've always wanted to volunteer. All
Let's
right,
go.
so second one is Beethoven, right? 124, section 3, question 3.
Yes.
All righty. So, although it is unwise to take a developmental view of an art like music, okay, so they're saying that that's not a good idea, as if
What's not a
Beethoven
good
were
idea, Brendan?
to take a developmental view of music. So essentially, like it starts here and it moves forward. That's what I've
Awesome.
got for
Cool.
my interpretation there. As if Beethoven were an advance over, oh God, Josquin or Miles Davis, an advance over Louis Armstrong. So those are just the examples, like saying that the person that came afterwards is just simply making what came before them better in that developmental view.
Yeah, nice.
There are ways in which it makes sense to talk about musical knowledge growing over time. Okay, so essentially here in this first, sentence? Yeah, they're saying that while it's unwise to take a developmental view of art like music, there are ways in which music does build on itself. It's just not like, it doesn't always build on itself. It seems is what I'm getting there. Is that kind of on the right track there, I think? Because it's saying that we shouldn't take a developmental view of art or music, but there are parts where it like develops. Does that kind of make sense? Or am I losing the train here?
No. I don't think you're losing the train. I like the way you're thinking. I like the way that I like the way you especially stopped and broke down what developmental, meant to you intuitively
Hmm.
and how the examples came from there. Um, I think I had developmental, my interpretation of developmental was the same to you, and they even like kind of elaborate on that with that example, saying, hey, not every single artist is basically just a progression from the artist that came before them. But it says that there are ways in which it makes sense to talk about musical knowledge growing over time. Now, I think since it's only the first sentence of the passage, I don't want to just equivocate that to this developmental view of art because they
Hmm.
made that sound like it's a little bit of like
A
Beethoven, then
difference.
this guy, then that guy, then that guy.
Right.
I'm not sure if musical knowledge growing over time is like the direct equivocation of developmental.
Right.
Maybe with some context, they could elaborate and define it in that way. But as of right now, I'm kind of thinking to myself, so like, what does musical knowledge growing over
Right.
time mean, right? Because like,
Yeah, and it says musical knowledge compared to viewing it as an art form, I think is kind of what
for
I meant to
sure.
say there. Like
Yeah.
the
Okay.
development
Cool.
of musical knowledge can be sequential, but
Sure.
the development of it as a larger art form from the macroscopic view is
Cool.
not necessarily in
Awesome.
that same developmental framework.
Okay. Now I think we're on the same page here because that's the way
All
I
right.
was thinking about it.
Yeah, no, and it's good to kind of talk it out to make sure that
Cool.
everybody else is going along too. Okay, so now that we've broken down one sentence, we certainly know more about certain sounds than we know more about certain sounds than was known 5 centuries ago. So we know more about certain sounds and how they work now than we did 500 years ago. That is, we
And
understand. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say like it's kind of cool to see that first sentence or the sentence after our discussion that we just had because that's kind of like confirming our suspicion, right? Because
About
now they're
musical
talking
knowledge
about
bit.
musical sounds, right? And so it's like musical sounds knowledge, which isn't just like artistic progression, right?
Hmm.
So I think
Uh,
now we're
oop,
confident. Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. Carry on.
yeah. Okay, so that is, we understand how new sound or how sounds that earlier composers avoided can be used effectively in musical compositions.
Hmm.
So that's a further development on that sounds bit there. For example, we
If you
now
had,
know how.
I just want
Oh,
to stop you again, Brandon. Sorry, I keep on interrupting you,
that's all right.
but just want to. Oh yeah, like I see like the blue note. Yeah, Monica. Yeah, like blues notes, right? Like 500 years ago, they weren't using blues notes, but eventually they figured out a way to use blues notes. And I love that, right? Like I love relating an example. I think that helps me stay engaged and make the passage and the facts more intuitive to me. Because I guarantee you, when I go into the answer choices, I'm going to be thinking about that blues note. So that's awesome. So, Brennan, I just want to say, like, I think that you did understand that, but to like further that understanding, I think examples and thinking about ways to relate the passage to you and your own personal experience will help you that much more.
Okay, so let's take a look at this last sentence here. For example, we now know how the interval of the third, which was considered dissonant, there's that mention of that the chat thing there, can be used in compositions to create consonant musical phrases. So looking through this whole thing,
Yeah.
I don't know necessarily like, so the argument, I suppose, is that while the art itself isn't developmental, knowledge can be. That first sentence, at least the second, the part after the second, what is it, the dash M dash, I think is
The
what it's
M
called. Yeah,
dash. Yep. Yep.
yeah. Second part after that, there are ways in which it makes sense to talk about musical knowledge growing over time. Is the closest thing that I'm seeing here to a conclusion
Whoa,
of
whoa,
the
Brandon. There ain't
argument.
no close. There's only, how does that saying go? No such thing as
Oh yeah,
close
there's no, yeah, there's only
and
missing
darts
and hitting.
and horseshoes or whatever. What is
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
conclusion? Come on, you broke down this argument. You know exactly what the author just wasted our time.
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
mean, I'm gonna go with the that because like, the why should we believe that bit, they always talk about that in the explanation videos, the why should we
yeah,
believe it.
100%.
So you've got why should we believe it? Well, we know more about sounds than we used to. For example, we know more about the
Yeah,
third, which used to be considered dissonant, is now considered consonant. And they're acknowledging essentially the counter argument at the beginning.
yeah,
That
for
first
sure.
bit is the
Yeah,
counter argument, and then there's the conclusion, and then there's the evidence afterwards.
love it.
So yeah, that's kind of what I've got. So that's what I'm going to go with as the conclusion there. And then the question
Cool.
is, what accurately describes the conclusion of the argument?
Right.
Okay, well, let's see if we can find it, I guess.
Before we go in though, like I know that this is redundant because we just did it in real time, like literally
Yeah,
2 seconds ago. But whenever I do a conclusion question, and I spend like a minute telling the author why they're full of shit and thinking about ways to strengthen and weaken the argument and all the assumptions that are there, and like I just rip the passage to shreds, and then I look at the question. It's like, what's the main conclusion? And it's almost like I want to hit my head, but it's like, oh my god, like why did I just spend so much time tearing this author to shreds? But that's great because I like the fact that I was able to do that means that I know exactly what the conclusion is. And then I read the question and I just remind myself, like I basically what I'm doing a detox of getting rid of, all my ways to attack the argument and just like honing in on, hey, what was the main point here? What did the author come here to tell us?
yeah.
And that's where I make like a very specific prediction. Go and find that.
And I suppose like I know they also talk about in the videos and the podcast and stuff, they talk about how sometimes there's weak arguments and strong arguments. It seems like this argument's like defense of itself is it lacks most flaws because it's just kind of providing examples that prove its point that are, as we mentioned in the chat, kind of like not as contestable as if they'd used a flawed reasoning to get
For sure,
there.
yeah. Like I didn't. Neither of us were going through here telling the author why they're full of shit. It was like,
Yeah.
yeah, like what you're saying. I could see why that makes sense.
So let's take a look. So you've got A, sounds that were never used in past musical compositions are used today. I mean, not necessarily, but like that's not actually our prediction.
But
Next,
what you
oh,
said not
sorry.
you said not necessarily, and you said that it's not our prediction. Like that. Like I said, the blinders, guardrails. We're looking for our
Yep,
prediction.
it
But
is.
if you had to tell me what answer choice is in the argument, meaning, and I like to keep it really simple: conclusion, premise, something else. Out of those
Mm.
three, what is answer choice A?
Uh, oh, the answer, like, is answer choice A conclusion, a thing, or a premise, or something else? I
Yeah,
suppose that's kind of it's kind of the last sentence just rephrased, isn't it? Like the premise of the last sentence. For example, we now know the interval of the third in written in a different way. Because like that's not
I would
necessarily
say it was. I would say it's more the sentence about like we know or we use sounds today that we didn't. What does it say specifically?
5 centuries
Then what
ago.
was that was 5 centuries ago. Like I feel like that was a piece of evidence that was used
Right.
to directly support the conclusion that they made.
Yeah. Either way, it's not necessarily or it's not the conclusion. It's not necessarily.
Right,
It's just
right,
straight up
right.
not the conclusion. So you can get
Yeah,
rid of A.
100%.
Sounds
Yep.
that were once considered dissonant or more pleasing to modern listeners. That is not the conclusion. That is a rephrase of the last sentence. It is inappropriate to take a developmental view is the counter argument acknowledgement, which is kind of the other thing that you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah,
It is
love it.
unwise to say that one composer is better than the other. That is something else. Our understanding of music can improve over the course of time matches pretty closely to what we have highlighted as a thing. And it's also the only thing that can really be understood to mirror the conclusion out of what we have. So I'm going to go with E.
All right. Brendan,
Yay.
you are a genius. Sweet. I love that. I love that. I love the way you attack those answer choices. I know I was kind of giving you a hard time at times, but I just like being
Well, it's the
crystal
thinking
clear
about
about
thinking
certain.
that's how you do
Exactly.
teaching.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. You killed it, Brendan. Any questions on this question? Beethoven. No? Brendan just did that good of a job. Brendan, you want to teach the rest of the class?
Hey, if I get a good enough score.
Cool. Do I have a volunteer for the next one? Nicholas. Go blue.
Cool.
All right. Wait, where are you on my screen, Nicholas? Oh, there you are. Sweet. All right, Nicholas. Let's do it. We're gonna do the Does anybody know how to pronounce that before I butcher myself? Nicholas?
The I was waiting for you to load it. The Connerly report.
There you go. Sweet.
Sure.
All right, Nicholas. Let's do it.
Okay, sure. So, it says consumer. The latest Connerly report suggests that Ockensfrey prepackaged meals are virtually devoid of nutritional value. Okay, so there's a C report that says that meals are unhealthy, basically. Easiest way to sum it up.
Nice. Yeah,
but
fair enough.
the Connerly report is commissioned by Danto Foods, Oxenfrey's largest corporate
wait, hang on
rival.
a sec.
Okay.
Oh, because did you there's something about when you're going through the passage and I was talking about earlier, like making predictions while you're in the passage.
Mhm.
If you had to stop at that comma right after Danto Foods and your spidey senses were tingling a little bit,
Yeah.
where would you say that the argument's about to head?
I would be like, oh, well, that's really stupid because why does it matter who commissioned it? Like, so if it sounds like the author wants to say, oh, okay, there's going to be some bias in this, and then he's going to
Oh,
try to
yes,
say that the
exactly.
conclusion is
Yes.
incorrect, and so that's probably where
Yes,
we're going to go with this.
I guarantee that if we had to, gun to our heads, if we had to stop right now and go into the answer choices into the question, we might be able to get it right just on what we have so far. Because
Right.
these questions repeat themselves, right? So time and again, there's going to be flaws that are reoccurring. And once you see however many of them, you're going to be able to spot them as early as right now. Cool.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's cool. That's powerful. I never thought to sort of like kind of predict where it's going before I've even gotten to what their conclusion is. So that's helpful.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. So then going on, right? So he says, okay, well, so the C report was commissioned by D, and D is O's rival, and so there's probably going to be some bias. So we go on, and he says, early drafts of the report are submitted for approval to D Foods Public Relations Department. So just
how convenient, right?
Yeah, right. We're pushing this further. So not only is D their big rival, but they're doing some PR on the C reports too. Okay.
Yep.
What's next? He says, then we're coming to a conclusion here. So because of the obvious bias of this report, it is clear that O's prepackaged meals really are nutritious. So yeah, clearly then my first thoughts on that is, well, yeah, that's insane, right? Like, well,
yeah.
why couldn't it be true that they're biased, but they're also just nutritious too, right? Like there's no reason why both of those couldn't both be true. So that's 100%. Kind of my first thought when I read this before I would go and then look at the question stem. I would feel kind of like armed for that.
Oh, 100%. I think you crushed it too. I think this is a very common flaw I'm not sure if the guys have a name for it. I've heard it sometimes on the podcast be called the blue sky flaw. I'm not sure if that's stuck or not. But basically, shitty evidence doesn't lead to the opposite conclusion. You know, you can have shitty evidence and still have a very valid conclusion. They can absolutely be biased, but you know, their report could still be 100% accurate. That's the
Yeah.
gist of it. Sweet. Nicholas, you crushed it.
Thank you. So then, yeah, so the question then says, the reasoning the consumer's argument is most vulnerable to criticism on the grounds of the argument. Great, that's the flaw that we just predicted, so I'm going to kind of look for that. A,
And if you
treats
had to say it
evidence
in
that-
your own words, though, real quick, just if you had to say it in your own words, how do you sum it up?
I would say that it's so the reasoning the consumer's argument is most vulnerable to criticism of the grounds of the argument. Well, I think that the argument tried to say that the conclusion was incorrect just because there was some appearance of bias, and that, like, why does that matter?
Nice.
So that's kind of what I'm looking for in the answers. A says, treats evidence that there is an apparent bias as evidence that the C report's claims are false. Well, that's perfect. That sounds exactly like the argument.
Right.
The argument one, it did that. That's exactly what the argument did.
Yeah.
And then two, that's sort of the flaw that I said about the argument.
Yeah.
I actually kind of have a question for you here. So on a situation like this on the test, if you read that
Continue to
answer
go
and
through
you
the answer.
okay, cool. I feel like that's
Keep
something that I struggle with. Cool. So yeah. So then I read the rest of the answer choices. B draws a conclusion based solely on an unrepresentative sample of O's products. No, it doesn't really seem like that. That's it. We don't know how many of their products that they sampled. It doesn't really seem like that happened in the argument. C fails to take into account the possibility that O has just as much motivation to create negative publicity for D as D has to create negative publicity for O. This is one kind of convoluted here. So they're just saying, oh, well, O hates D and D hates O, but I don't really see why that's a problem for the argument. Like, that's not really what we're focusing on here, right? The problem is that he wants to say that the inverse of the conclusion is true. So I don't really see why this is a problem for the argument. So I wouldn't really consider this to be
Nice.
a good answer choice. D fails to provide evidence that D Foods prepackaged meals are not more nutritious than O's are. Again, sort of the same thing here. Well, I guess that's true. He did not provide evidence of that, but I don't see why that's a problem for the argument, because the conclusion of the argument was that there's no way that O can be healthy. It has to be unnutritional. And that's or I guess I switched them. Actually, it says it's they're devoid. The C said it was devoid of nutrition. They want to say that it actually is nutritious, but either way, it's just not really. This isn't attacking the conclusion, so it doesn't really seem like this is kind of what we're looking for.
And just to pause real quick, is what Nicholas is doing is something really important on flaw questions, guys. He's asking himself, did the argument do this? And even though, you know, some of the answer choices might do something, it has to pass the second test, which is it a problem that the argument did do it? And if it fails on that second test, then it's not going to be the answer, right? Because Nicholas just explained for answer choice D. Did the argument fail to provide evidence that Danto Foods prepackaged meals are not more nutritious than O's are? Yeah, sure it did, but we don't care. Like that wasn't the issue here, right? It's not a problem that they didn't do that. So even though they did, it's not a problem. It's not going to be the right answer choice. I love that. I love that. I just wanted to share with the class. That's awesome that you're doing that, Nicholas.
Awesome. Thank you. And then, E, presumes, so the argument presumes, without providing justification, that D Foods Public Relations Department would not approve a draft of a report that was hostile to D Foods products. Yeah, so sort of same thing here. Well, one, I don't even think that the argument presumed this. I don't think it said that, like, the argument wasn't really talking about, like, the argument said that they submitted the C report for approval, but the argument didn't say anything about whether or not they would or would not approve it. So just not really something that happened in the argument here. So I wouldn't really kind of go further than that.
For sure. Cool. All right, so we're locking in answer choice A, right?
Correct.
Sweet. Awesome. Crush it, Nicholas. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, Brendan, what's up?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I know it goes against like proper reviewing, but is there a reason on test day why I shouldn't click A and move on? Because that one matched so well to the prediction that like, yeah, like I suppose I'm just kind of looking for justification to waste time in reviewing answers when A is so obviously right.
You know why? Because if you do it on question 4, you're gonna be tempted to do it on question 14 and question 24. And that's when doing something like that is gonna screw you over. Promise you. Yeah, Nicholas killed the passage. He had a super solid prediction. He saw answer choice A, locked it in. It was obviously exactly what we were looking for. We were doing this out loud, live in real time. How long does it take to go through B through E? Maybe 7.5 seconds, maybe less. Like super fast. It's practicing good form. It's keeping yourself honest, because you're probably going to feel that way on some later questions, but some of those later questions might not be as forgiving, and that's when it's like you just don't want to screw yourself by doing something stupid like that on a later question where it could hurt you. Does that make sense, Brennan? Cool. All right, sweet. I got Danielle.
Hi, sorry, I'm recovering from a cold.
Okay.
I guess to go off their questions with that. So I took the LSAT once.
Nice.
I really got fatigued. And one of my ways to help beat that fatigue was to do that. What remedies would you have to build your stamina, like when taking the test, so that I don't feel obligated to just pick an answer?
Gotcha. I think the first step would be to understand and eliminate fully the belief that LSAT stamina is a thing. It's not a thing. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as LSAT stamina. If you are getting fatigued or tired after doing LSAT questions, it's because you are struggling to do those LSAT questions, and that's because those questions are hard to you. So that just means that we got to continue to practice and continue to refine our skills so the LSAT feels easy. Because I'm almost positive that if we just did questions like we've been doing so far for the next 3 hours straight, we'd have a great time. We'd be sipping cocktails. We'd be partying. It'd be a hoot, right? That's because it feels easy, and that's good, right? So LSAT stamina, I just don't think it's a thing. I think once, and obviously, everybody's at different points in their LSAT journey, but once you get good enough at the test, it's just like riding a bike. It becomes fun, it becomes easy, and then you're just gonna, you might get to B or A, be like, oh yeah, that's what I was looking for. Let me get rid of these real quickly, and just carry on. Does that make sense? Awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. You'll get there. Maya?
Hi, it wasn't really a question. I just wanted to add on to that.
Yeah.
I've made predictions a few times and
Okay.
the prediction wasn't the right prediction,
Sure.
but it was in the answer choices. It was like one of the
Okay.
answer choices. So I picked that answer thinking that, oh, that's my
Yeah.
prediction, and it was wrong.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
highly would not recommend just going with, okay, if A seems like it matches the prediction, and stopping there and moving on to the next question. I would strongly recommend reading all of them, because just like in my case, you may find a better answer, so to speak.
That's actually a really great point that I didn't bring up, and thank you so much for bringing that up. Brendan, take notes here. This is also another point as to why you should read all the answer choices. Because let's say you don't do, I don't want to say that you don't do your job in the passage, but maybe you missed something that led you to believe that there was some type of flaw when that flaw wasn't actually there. And the answer choices, the test makers are smart. They did that intentionally, knowing that some students are going to miss that detail, and it might change the argument to frame it in one way. And you sure as hell better bet that way is going to come up in the answer choices, and you might see it in A, pick it and move on. But then instead of doing that, like let's say you got to E and you read it and you thought about it and you're like, oh shit, I missed that. Let me go back to the passage. Right? So that's just another, again, that's like a passive way of doing the test. It's like not, we have two parachutes. The first parachute is to do it the way we have been doing, making good predictions, reading for comprehension. But the other answer choices are like your backup parachute. Cool. Glenn?
Yes, Stefan. I was wondering, from your point of view, what will be the number of hours that you recommend to study by day? Because I work a full-time job and I'm struggling. Like, so
For sure.
I just do like 1 hour or 2 hours after work, and I don't know if that is enough to make a difference on my test score. So I was wondering, from your point of view, what
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
your recommendation?
We recommend, like at least 1 hour a day. But do me a favor, stick around after class if you can, and we can delve a little bit deeper into this topic. Is that cool?
Okay, bye. That's no problem.
All right, sweet. Because I just want to make sure we do try to get some more questions in. But that's a great question. I'll definitely answer it. Do I have a volunteer for the next one? Or let me check in that chat real quick. Nice. A lot of people working full time. You guys are troopers. Keep doing your thing. Okay, cool. I see Brendan, you talk about changing perspective. Yes, exactly. Nice. Cool. Do I have a volunteer for the next question? Angie.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna do treated lumber. Angie's gonna take us through it. Whenever you're ready, Angie.
Sure. Editorialist. There would seem to be little hazard. There would seem to be little hazard for consumers associated with chemicals used in treated lumber because the lumber is used outside where fumes cannot accumulate. Okay, so I don't know why I like looking at the word seem.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it's almost like the editorialist is tipping their hat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, it's like saying there might be, but it looks like there could be little hazard, but I'm assuming that they're going to say it's actually really bad.
yeah, right? Because they're saying, what do they say? They're doing it outside where fumes cannot accumulate, but it's like, hey, author, what if fumes probably aren't the only way I could die from treated lumber? Like, I don't know, what if I touch it and all of a sudden I wake up with whatever and I die the next day? Like there are more ways we can interact with toxins.
Right.
So yeah, cool. Awesome.
However, immediate steps should be taken to determine the safety of these chemicals since consumers could ingest them. Okay. Weird.
Angie, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Did I cut out?
Yeah, I think you cut out because she went on.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
did I cut out? Was that me?
Yeah, that was you cutting
I
out.
think so, yeah.
Thank you so much for making that apparent, Brendan. So sorry, guys. All right, I'm sorry, Angie, but please take me back to wherever you left off.
I was just reading the however, immediate steps should be taken to determine the safety of these chemicals since consumers could ingest them. So that's a bit weird. I don't know about
people ingesting lumber.
Lumber.
Yeah, particularly my appetite, but
I know.
Everybody's got their
okay.
thing.
So let's see. All right. If the lumber is used for children's playground equipment, okay, youngsters could
What do you
put their
think about
mouth on
that?
the wood. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that would be one way to ingest it. They're chewing on wood. And if it's used to contain soil in a vegetable garden, the chemicals could leach into the soil. Okay.
Dang. What do we think? What did the author come here to waste our time? Because usually at the end, I'm coming up with objections. I'm coming up with ways to call bullshit on the author, but I don't know. I'm pretty sympathetic. Like the author sounds pretty logical here, right? Like,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, he's
we
just
treat
saying
lumber
that.
outside, but I don't want my 4-year-old dying from eating toxic wood chips. So like, yeah, hats off to you, editorialists. Like, so what did the editorialists come here to tell us?
That we need to make sure that these are safe chemical, or that because it's a conditional. If lumber is used, then this would happen. Or if lumber is used
don't-
for children's
Yeah,
equipment,
I
playground,
don't.
youngsters could put them in their mouths. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
for
fine.
sure.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I don't think like conditional. Like I just noticed that you use that word. Um, don't necessarily need to think about it in that way. That's kind of just like
It's like
an
the
evidence.
example.
Yeah, it's just kind of like evidence that they put forward again to support their conclusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see Brendan popped it over in the chat, identified clearly the sentence. Other people seem to be in green, but yeah, Angie, I think you identified it pretty well. And I don't know if anybody has any objections here that they want to put them forward, please go ahead. But I can't necessarily think of anything.
Yeah, it seems pretty. I mean, we should definitely determine safety of things. So,
Sweet.
okay. So then the question says, which one of the following most accurately expresses the main conclusion in the editorialist argument? Something about still needing to determine the safety of these chemicals.
Right. So if
would be my prediction, but
so your prediction was something about needing to determine the safety of these chemicals?
yes,
Cool.
still needing to do that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
I like it. I think I'd go on with the same thing.
Okay. So A, the chemicals used in treated lumber are apparently not dangerous to the consumer.
Well.
No.
What about my 4-year-old?
Yeah, didn't it just say the opposite of that? He said at the beginning there would seem to be, but it wasn't what he was going for. Okay, so that one is out. B, treated lumber is as dangerous when used outdoors as it is when used indoors. I didn't think that they gave us a comparison of the level of danger. So, and that's not talking about the safety. So, so I don't like it. C, the effects on humans from the chemicals in treated lumber should be studied. Yes, they should be studied. Yeah.
You feel a little
Yeah.
reluctant to that, Angie. Why do you feel that way?
I was looking more for safety, but
Okay.
seems okay. I mean, that would be an effect, right, of the
Right.
chemicals.
Yeah.
So it would be like a broader way of looking at it.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. I think so too. And again, like on conclusion questions, sometimes, and again, I don't know if this is the right answer or not yet. We'll still have to,
Yeah,
eliminate
exactly.
D and E.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, they can use
Yeah.
words that are synonymous. They can use words that are representative of like a more, broader scope that includes that specific detail. So yeah, but do you feel pretty okay about C, Angie?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
If there's another one that's more specific, then
Sure.
yeah, we'll go with that. Okay, so D, parents should not allow children to put their mouths on anything on playground equipment. No, they didn't do that. It didn't say that. E, treated lumber is more dangerous than once believed. No, it didn't do that either. There wasn't like a time element.
I just don't think that
Yeah,
was
and
ever
it doesn't
said.
talk
Correct me if
about,
I'm
yeah,
wrong. Yeah.
it doesn't talk about the safety of it, or this book answer choices. Yeah. Okay. So C,
Sometimes answer choices are like so wrong they can
yeah,
feel wrong,
I was like, didn't
right?
do any of these, and then they're not even premises.
Yeah.
I think E is a false thing for the first sentence.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. I don't even think they said that anywhere in the passage.
Yeah, it's more dangerous than Okay.
Cool. So what's our
so
answer, Angie?
C. Definitely
C?
C now.
Awesome. All right. Cool. Nailed it. Nice work, Angie. That's awesome. And way to stay in the saddle there. I know C didn't like pop out to us like maybe some of the other ones, but once we thought about it a little bit more, saw that the language was kind of indicative of the same concept, same thing. Eliminate D through E, and we're on our way. It's another free LSAT point. Cool. You guys want to do one more? Yeah? Cool. Told you we're having fun. Who wants to do it though? That's the question. Milani. I saw Milani's hand first. I'm sorry, Rachel. Is that how you pronounce your name? Am I doing it right?
It's actually Melanie.
Melanie. Wow. I'm such an idiot. That's like so. You guys probably think I'm so dumb. That's like
No, it's
obviously the way you
okay.
pronounce your name.
No, it's
No,
okay.
sorry. Oh man. Cool. Oh wow. Sorry, I'm just so baffled right now. What are we doing?
No, it's
Pursue
okay.
wealth?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Melanie, shall we?
Yes. Okay. So it says, Megan, people pursue wealth beyond what their basic needs require only if they see it as a way of achieving high status of prestige. And I immediately question, like, really, is this the only reason people pursue wealth beyond their basic needs? But okay, whatever.
Whoa, hang on, not whatever. Why do you think that, Melanie?
No, I
Because
mean, like,
I'm gonna argue against you. I'm gonna say, yeah, that's the only reason. My neighbor across the street that just bought a Ferrari, he didn't do it because he likes Ferraris. He did it because he wanted to look me in the eyes without looking me in the eyes and telling me, hey, I'm better than you. That's what I think. I think that's the only reason people ever buy something when they have wealth beyond their basic needs. Do you have
that's true.
anything to say against that, Melanie?
I mean, I guess it's true then.
What do you mean? Is he
Like,
no?
there are people. Well,
You're
I
supposed
was
to be
just
arguing
thinking,
with me here.
yeah, well, I was thinking that can't be the only reason. There has to be at least one person that doesn't think this way because there's two speakers. So I immediately know that they're going to disagree.
Who says there's two speakers? I don't see another speaker. We're talking about Megan right now.
Okay. Okay.
I don't even going way too fast here.
Okay.
I
Okay.
know I'm giving you a hard time. I'm giving you a hard time, but this is just
Mhm.
practicing good form. This is the way I want us to be thinking, right? So
Okay.
you told me you disagree with Megan, and
Mhm.
I think you're right to disagree with Megan. I think that I disagree with Megan too. But I
Mhm.
want you to tell me why you disagree with Megan. And you can get creative with it. You can think of your own reasons, but I just want you to think of I want you to think this way because it allows us to, dive deeper into the
Mhm.
rationale and the reasoning, and it will help us moving forward. So you said that there has to be at least one other person in this world that is
Mhm.
um, pursuing wealth beyond their basic needs.
Mhm.
Why could somebody be doing that? Like, what's one reason you can think
Mm, I guess just to improve their well-being.
of? Okay, cool. Like maybe I don't know. Maybe they want to buy $5,000 sauna. Sure, you can get a
Mhm.
sauna for cheaper, but
Mhm.
maybe they got a little extra jangle in the pocket, and they said, you know what? They say saunas are good for you. I'm gonna buy a
Mhm.
sauna because I want to live longer. That's why they go ahead and buy a sauna.
Mhm.
Cool. So do you see like that doesn't just happen naturally, right? Like we gotta force ourselves to think that way, and we gotta force ourselves to stop and think of another reason because it's one thing like it's on one level to look at Megan and be like, no, Megan, you're full of shit, and then move on and start like blundering through the next argument. But it takes
Mhm.
us to a deeper level of understanding if we stop and go, why is Megan wrong? Why is Megan full of shit? Cool. Does that make sense?
Okay. Mhm.
Oh, now you can go on to this so-called second speaker that you were talking about.
Okay. Shannon not everybody thinks that way. After all, money is the universal medium of exchange. So if you have enough
Hang on one
of it,
sec.
you can.
Hang on one sec. Whoa, time out,
Mhm.
time out. What do we think about those first two sentences? Because I just want us to pause and think about what those sentences or what those words actually mean to you. Why is Shannon saying what she's saying?
She might be one of those people that pursue wealth for a different reason, or she knows other people that pursue wealth for different reasons.
Yeah, it could be, right? But I'm thinking about like when she says, after all, money is the universal medium of exchange. That kind of strikes me as like bizarre. Like why is Shannon bringing this up? Like I'm sure everybody here knows that money is the universal medium of exchange. And after all, this class is about predictions. So I want us to predict and think about why is Shannon bringing that up? Like where is she going? She just told us that money is the universal medium of exchange. From her first sentence, I think it's pretty clear that she disagrees with Megan. And it seems like she's going to be using this concept of money and the universal medium of exchange to bolster her argument, which is against Megan's. Can we think about where Shannon might be going here?
That there's, I guess, to explain the different reasons why people would pursue wealth.
Yeah. I think we're heading on the right page here. Looking into the chat, I think some of your classmates are jumping in, helping you out a little bit. I see Hannah says you can use money for anything, not just to show off. So, and I like that point because I think what Shannon is trying to do is trying to like detach this emotional connection to money by bringing it up very like oddly, bizarrely of, hey, money's just this universal medium of exchange. It's just what we use to get stuff. I feel like she's taking like, I don't want to call it like a logical sense, but kind of like very surface level of, hey, like it's not that deep. Like I have a dollar bill, I'm going to buy a Ferrari and we're just going to exchange that. So it's like, what's different between, the Ferrari and the money? Before I had X amount of dollars in dollars. Now I have a Ferrari. They're kind of just like the same thing. I just exchanged the two. Right? Is that making a little bit more sense now?
It
Okay.
does.
Cool. Cool. Awesome.
Okay, so it says, so if you have enough of it, you can exchange it for whatever other material goods you may need or want, even if you are indifferent to what others think of you.
What do we think about that?
I guess exactly what you had explained, that it, like, money's just money. It doesn't have to represent like status or
Yeah, for sure.
or prestige.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm.
So we got two arguments here. Megan is saying when you're pursuing wealth beyond your basic needs, well, just for argument's sake, basic needs, food, water, shelter, you're doing it as a way to seek status or prestige. Shannon's saying, slow down. Money is just like this universal medium of exchange. We can use it to buy whatever goods we want, and we don't necessarily have to have like any sort of emotional attachment or intention to it. We're just, exchanging what we have for other goods. So you can be indifferent to purchasing the Ferrari. It's just like you're looking at X amount of dollars saying, I don't want these actual dollar bills anymore. I'm just going to trade them in for a Ferrari. I don't care what anybody else thinks about me. And I don't care about how it's going to affect my prestige in any way. Cool. Does that make sense, Melanie? We're feeling good about the two arguments so far.
Yeah.
Cool. Now, frequently when two different arguments are presented, I like to think about what are some points that these two people could either agree or disagree on? So if you had to think about that, what would you say that? What would you say?
That they disagree of whether people pursue wealth to achieve status or prestige.
Yeah, 100%, right?
Mhm.
Because Megan's reason was, yeah, that's why. Shannon was like, hey, no, they're not necessarily, you know, pursuing these commodity um, items for any sort of reason. It's just a medium of exchange. Not everybody thinks that way. So there's different reasons for pursuing so-called wealth. Cool. How do we feel? Do we feel good about this, Melanie? Yeah? How does everybody
Yeah.
else feel? We feeling good? Cool. All right, Melanie. You can go to the question if you would like.
Okay. It says Megan and Shannon disagree over whether A, people
Well, hang on one
oh,
sec.
sorry.
I know we just talked about it, but I just
Mhm.
like to get just again like this is practice in good form. I'm trying to walk you guys through like my thought process, what I do in real time when I'm doing a question. So
Okay.
just get real clear. Like you come up with the prediction. Megan and Shannon disagree over whether finish the sentence.
Mhm.
Go for it,
Oh,
Melanie.
sorry.
You're good.
I guess what I said before, that they disagree over whether people pursue wealth, just for the sole reason of prestige or status.
Nice. Nice.
Mhm.
I like it. I like it.
Okay. Do I go ahead and read all the answer
Yeah, yeah,
choices?
go for it. Go
Okay.
for it.
All right. So A, people ever pursue wealth beyond what is required for their basic needs. It doesn't. I mean, I honestly, when I was doing this one, I was kind of tempted by this one by A.
Okay.
But I feel like it's not. They're not disagreeing
Yeah,
like
right?
about what's beyond, like what's required, or I don't know. I don't know if it
Like
makes
yeah,
sense.
no, it's good.
Yeah.
So a good way to think about this, like if you're tempted by something, just ask yourself, if you were to say that statement to Megan, would Megan either respond yes or no?
Yes.
Right? She would say yeah, and she says
Yeah.
it right in her first sentence. People pursue
Mhm.
wealth beyond what their basic needs require. So we
Mhm.
know that she agrees with that statement. Now, if you were to say
Mhm.
that exact same statement to Shannon, would Shannon respond yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, right? She obviously agrees too, because otherwise, what the
Mhm.
hell are they talking about here? She says not everybody thinks that way. She gets about the whole like universal medium of exchange. So she's
Mhm.
admitting that people do pursue wealth beyond their basic needs, but they're doing it for a different reason. So both of Megan and Shannon would agree with that statement. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Mhm.
Cool. And I also want to say that I think that you already knew that. I just wanted to explain it for the class.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. So B, it is irrational to try to achieve high status or prestige in the eyes of one society. Um, to me, when I read this, I said definitely not. It wasn't at all mentioned in either one of their statements of whether
Yep,
it
I
was
agree.
irrational, or about. I mean, society wasn't mentioned. It
Yeah,
might have been a
for
little
sure.
bit implied for Shannon, but I don't think so. So to me, it was just definitely wrong.
Yeah, cool.
Mhm.
Like it.
C, the pursuit of monetary wealth is irrational only when it has no further purpose. Again, I immediately just saw that this was incorrect, because there wasn't anything mentioned about being irrational.
Yeah, I didn't see anything about rationality in either of the arguments. They were just talking
Yeah,
about like objectively people pursue wealth beyond their basic needs. And then they were arguing
exactly.
about why people do that. They weren't
Hmm.
saying whether it's right or wrong or whether it's irrational or irrational. They were
Hmm.
just saying it how it is and then giving different reasons for why.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Awesome.
And then D, it is rational to maximize one's ability to purchase whatever one wants only when the motive for doing so is something other than the desire for prestige. I just have to read that again just to
Yeah, you're
understand it.
good.
It is rational to maximize one's ability to purchase. Whatever one wants. Yeah, this one to me again was no. Again, it's talking about rationality.
Yeah, right. 100%. And that's what I wanted to
and
mention. Like in
yeah.
the third word is rational, and we just got done talking about B, C about where did either of them talk about rationality.
Mhm.
So D is just kind of like tripling down on that same concept that we already eliminated twice.
Mhm.
Cool. All right. I hope it's E.
Yeah. It says the motive for pursuing wealth beyond what one's basic needs require is never anything other than the desire for prestige or high status. And I think definitely I feel very confident about this one, because that's exactly what Megan says, and that's exactly what Shannon disagrees.
100%. Megan would say yes. Shannon would say no. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Cool. Before we finish off with this question, I just want to look in the chat real quick because I noticed that Rachel, you said the wants threw me off. Do you want to elaborate on that a bit?
Sorry for
Oh,
my
you're good.
mute. And now I've got to pull up the scenario. So yeah, like in Megan's statement, she's talking about needs, and then Shannon actually talks about what people may need or want. And then in answer choice D, it says whatever one wants. So it's not actually talking about the basic needs. Sorry, my throat is scratchy.
That's a good point. Yeah. I think I see what you're saying. So you're saying that Megan is saying when people pursue wealth beyond their basic needs, Shan is saying um, other material goods you may need or want. So she's also bringing in like that other element. I think Megan almost like implies wants by saying achieving high status or prestige. I
Yeah.
feel like that implies like when you're doing that, that's obviously not a need. That's kind of a want. But I do get where you're coming from in answer choice D because it says whatever one wants or maximize one's ability to purchase whatever one wants. Um, because Megan kind of only talks about the needs. Were you saying that as like that was an indication to you that that was an incorrect answer, or did that kind of like throw you off or make you tempted by D?
Yeah, it was just an indicator that it was the incorrect answer.
Okay, cool, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, good point. Good point. Thanks for that, Rachel. Sweet. Melanie, how do we feel about this one?
I felt good. Definitely in my mind, like I was thinking too fast and I was like, oh, this is
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
I have it in the
yeah.
bag. But then when I think about it, I'm just like, oh, I need to
Exactly. And
slow
that's
down.
where
Yeah.
like this is a muscle, right? That we need to build.
Mhm.
So if I just allowed you to continue to read Megan's statement and continue, like moving forward, it's almost like we just missed a set or a rep that we could have used to further build that muscle, to further build that skill of prediction in thinking critically. So always, if you got to stop however many times during a sentence, do it. Stop, think about what you just read, think about where the argument's going. Yeah, Rachel, I see that you're saying the irrational, rational part. Yeah, I think so too. I think, like wrong answer choices, they can be wrong for one reason or multiple reasons. And I think noticing different reasons isn't a bad thing. But also, if you don't notice other reasons because there's one glaringly like big reason, that's okay too. Cool. All right. how do we feel, everybody? You got any questions on this question? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording, and then I'll stick around and we can continue chatting.